What is up, everybody? This is Lyle with No Hippie Barbecue, and what I'm going to be doing in this video is we're going to be making some seared tuna. We're going to have a chance to let this tuna marinate for a good 8 hours before we start searing it off. The marinade that we're going to be using has a nice little Asian kind of a theme to it. We're going to be pairing it with some pickled shallots, cucumbers, and jalapenos, and we're going to use some of that sauce. It's almost like a dipping sauce for this tuna. Should be a very simple recipe. What we're going to do now is just hook up this marinade. Now I'm just going to kind of throw this marinade together, but what I will do is I will put the ingredients and amounts in the description below. This is going to be good for around 2 pounds of tuna, which is what we have here. So we have our 2 pounds of tuna. We have some sugar. We're just going to throw this in our bowl. Some salt and pepper, some minced garlic, and garlic powder would work as well, some sesame oil. Let's get this salt in here. Some lime juice, and our soy sauce. Now we're just going to mix this up, make sure it's mixed together well. And let me move this to the side. I'm going to grab a Ziploc bag. We're just going to throw it in a Ziploc bag. And it's going to have a chance to sit in this marinade, like I said, for about 8 hours. And about 4 hours through, I will go ahead and flip those over just to make sure that there's marinade contacting every ounce of this tuna. And if I didn't mention it earlier, I will have a recipe for this these pickled vegetables here. Once we are done searing off this salmon, I'm going to pour off some of this liquid, add a little bit of wasabi paste to it, and that's where we're going to dip this tuna in. And I'm just going to kind of massage this in real quick before it goes in the refrigerator. And I'll see you back in 8 hours. Alright guys, so we've had a chance to let this tuna sit in that marinade for about 7 hours. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to take the pickled vegetables and we're going to go ahead and drain those off. Now at this point, you could go ahead and crust this tuna with like some sesame seeds or something like that, but I think there's enough sesame flavor in there with the marinade that we use. So there we go, we have our liquid drained off, and that's probably a little bit more than I need right there. I'm going to go ahead and grab another bowl, a little bit more of a manageable size, and we're just going to go ahead and pour this in here. We're not going to need this much liquid for our dipping sauce or whatever. And that's good to go. I have my wasabi paste that I mentioned earlier. We're just going to go ahead and squeeze some of this in. If you don't like wasabi, obviously leave it out. I'm a big fan of wasabi, so I'm going to go ahead and stir this in. In the meantime, I'm going to let this salmon or this tuna dry out for probably about another 10 minutes. I'm going to get my skillet screeching hot and we'll go ahead and start searing that off. These vegetables right here, I've already tasted them. They are the bomb. This is good by itself. So let's go ahead and sear this off. I'm only going to sear one of these off because my family's going to be home a little bit later. So I'm just going to go with one right now. I'm using a grapeseed oil that is right below the smoking point. And you can use whatever kind of oil you want. I didn't want to use sesame oil because there's enough sesame in this marinade. So let's go ahead and get this in. We're only going to have this in for about 1.5 minutes per side. So as you can see, this brown is kind of creeping up along the sides. We're about 1 minute and 15 seconds in. I'm going to go ahead and flip this now. And that should be enough right there. Let's go ahead and remove it. And I'm just going to let it sit on the cutting board for about 5 minutes before we cut into it. Now that this has had a chance to rest for about 5 minutes, we're going to go ahead and slice into it. Tuna can be pretty delicate, so I'm using the sharpest knife that I have, which happens to be this cheap boning knife that I bought off of Amazon. Let's go ahead and I'll put a link to this in the description in case you want to run by there and take a look at it. But boom, here's what we're looking like. That looks perfect. And we are cutting against the grain. And I'm going to go ahead and plate this up. I may throw some sesame seeds on top of this just for a little bit of garnish. And I'm going to come down here just to make it a little bit cleaner for our plating presentation. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get to that here in just a minute. So I cannot wait to get into this. When I go out to get sushi, my favorite part of going to a sushi restaurant is some of this seared tuna. So let's get in. Now first I'm going to take it by itself. And that is delicious. Now I'm going to get it with some of this sauce that we made earlier with those pickled vegetable remnants. That is even better. Now I'm going to stack up some of these pickled shallots, jalapenos, and I'm going to get a piece of this cucumber on here along with the tuna. Dip this in. That right there, I'm in heaven. Now, if you happen to be watching this and you don't like tuna, man, this pickled vegetable is good enough to eat by itself. A little spicy for some of you guys that may not like spice, but listen, before I take another bite of this, I'm going to thank you guys for stopping by No Hippie Barbecue, because I'm going to kill all this right here. All right? I want you guys to comment, subscribe, and I'm out.